the minute, the second you begin to acknowledge and embrace all of the aspects of yourself, the good and the bad, the ego will begin to lose power over you. And that's what we want, because that leads to awakening, and that's what leads to enlightenment. So the ego has a very limited view of who you are. Debbie Ford says that it's very important that we challenge the person that we think we are in order to unveil the person we are capable of becoming. What does that mean? Challenge the person you think you are. And what she meant by that was the ego has created so many roles for us, so many masks that we wear, right? And the ego wants us to think that's who we are, but that's not who we are. That's the programmed conditioned self. That's the limited self that the ego wants us to be, right? Because that keeps us safe, remember? So Debbie Ford says, challenge the person you think you are in order to unveil the person you are capable of becoming. So once we integrate all of our shadow aspects, that's the person that we are capable of becoming. And she also says that the pain of our perceived flaws, right? Perceived flaws, because they're programmed into our mind that they are flaws, right? Programmed, conditioned inadequacies. The pain of our perceived flaws compels us to cover them up because we want to be loved as children, right? We want to be taken care of. We need to survive in that household, right? So the perception of the child perceives aspects of ourself as there's something wrong with me. I'm not worthy. So these are perceived flaws, and we are compelled to cover them up. When we deny certain aspects of ourselves, she says, we overcompensate by becoming their opposite, okay? Then we create an entire, the ego creates an entire persona to prove to ourselves and the world that we are not that. So we're just hiding aspects of ourselves because we think those aspects of us are flawed, right? So we have learned through the webinars, through the past month, we have learned that relationships are literally our means of expansion, our means of awakening. Without relationships, we would not have anything to reflect our perceptions on, okay? So when people are looking for partners, they are actually really just looking for the lost part of themselves. We attract others who are in vibrational alignment with ourselves. So I always say this, your subconscious mind is programmed to attract the exact people who will activate your wounds. Okay, so that's your partners, your friends, right? Your relatives, your loved ones, your children, especially your children. So the subconscious mind is programmed to bring you back into homeostasis, to bring you back into balance. So the partner, you will see this, if you look at people, partners are usually opposite. They're always in opposition because they balance each other out. So it's our wounded self, okay, that does the attracting. We all have two selves, right? We have our ego, our little self, our small self, our wounded self, and we have our spiritual self, our higher self, our soul, our higher consciousness. So the wounded self is the part of you that feels incomplete. inadequate, that there's something flawed, something wrong with me. It questions your worth and your value. It doesn't feel whole, and it feels flawed. So our wounded self is the egoic part of us that doesn't feel worthy, right? Does not feel worthy, does not feel lovable. On the other hand, we also have our spiritual self. And this is your higher self, your soul. It's the part of you that's connected to love, to truth, to wisdom, and to peace within. Your spiritual self knows without a doubt how lovable and valuable you truly are. In many ways, it is the opposite of the ego. So at any given moment, we are operating from one of these two selves. And many of us, unfortunately, operate from the point of view of the ego most of the time, right? Many people believe that that's who they are, right? That they're that limited self that the ego thinks you are. They believe that's who they are. They believe that they're insignificant and powerless in some way. So we're always trying to make up for that lack. The ego looks for things in the outer world to help it validate itself, to help it find validation. It believes that it's not complete until it gets more money, a better partner, a better job, a better house, more vacations, and then it will finally be happy. More education, more. The ego is never, ever, ever happy, not for long. Anyway, because the ego's very nature is to feel incomplete. So it lives in lack and it lives in victimhood. Therefore, when you live through this perspective of your ego, you're destined to feel like something's missing, right? Something's off, something's wrong with me. Life through this lens is called suffering. Okay, this is why people suffer, because they look at life through the lens of the egoic mind instead of through the lens of the soul. The ego gets highly activated when it comes to intimate relationships, because relationships are where we hold the most wounding. We recreate our childhood in our new family. We recreate our childhood in our new family. I see this over and over and over again, that whatever the wound was in childhood, it's the same wound that's activated in the family dynamic, okay? Completely unconscious. We carry the memory of that wound into adulthood, and we attract the very people who are going to highlight that same feeling for us, okay? So, for example, if your wounding is centered around feeling rejected or feeling unseen, it's likely that you'll feel a similar way in your relationship as an adult. And then you'll resort back to your childhood defense mechanisms that you used when you felt rejected, when you felt unseen. Maybe you became the clown, you put on the clown mask and you tried to be funny to get attention. Or, maybe you became sick in order to get attention. Maybe you used illness. Maybe that was the only time you got attention. Maybe you created situations where, you got negative attention because it was better than no attention at all. Your unconscious is programmed to attract people who activate your wounds. For this reason, is so that you will grow, that you will expand. Okay, so you just have to be able to recognize that. This is awakening. This is called awakening. Your unconscious is programmed to attract the people who will activate your wounds. You have to be awakened to that.